All right, let's get started with some questions. Let's see. What are some of the most reliable methods for bringing in a remote guest for a live event? Skype, individual Zoom rooms? Mish, you want to speak to that?
Sure, absolutely. I think the first thing on this is not only the reliable connection, but what is your presenter used to? We work with doctors who only want to work with Zoom. And so we want to set them up for success. So we're not going to throw a new piece of technology at them. We're going to let them come in through Zoom. But I think, something like we're on here today, neural net is a really good piece of software too. And it's a little more robust. We have a little bit more control. My team can actually control my audio, my camera angle, all from this program. And so that is probably my preference. Chris, you want to tag on to that?
I mean, I completely agree. That's why we went with the proprietary-based system that we use. I mean, it's web-based, and like you say, it gives you a lot more control. With Zoom, you're just kind of in Zoom, and they kind of control it, but we have individual control with each presenter. So when we do bring them in, it's kind of nice to be able to adjust their camera, lighting, audio, and once we bring them into our system, we also have the ability to put them in a green room, to hold them there. We can communicate with them on the backside, and that definitely helps us from a pre-production standpoint. So once we do get them into the studio, they're ready to go and checked, and it makes a huge difference. So.
Awesome. All right, this one's going to be for Victor. Victor, is there a brand that comes to mind who adapted well to this pandemic?
There's one that kind of comes to mind, but really what I was impressed with was performers in the space, live performers, especially magicians, and that's one brand I'll talk about. It's a performer by the name of Helder Guimaras. Helder was literally about to premiere his show in the Geffen Playhouse over in LA. And as a magician, you feed off the live energy from your audience. What they had to do is go back to the drawing board, figure out what he's most known for, his why, which is making the impossible possible, and how that best represents, especially in environments like this. So they were able to do a completely virtual performance that drew in about 5 times more audience members than it would have in the past. It did so well, they ended up doing a second run of a show completely afterwards. That's just one example.
Awesome. All right, Michelin, what is your average pre-production time?
It differs for client to client. I'll say we work really well with other clients, marketing and graphics departments, so that we can each tackle components. If you've already got some components in-house, there's no need to reinvent the wheel on those. We'll help you get them show ready and broadcast ready. But I'd say the average time, is probably 25 to 30 days. It doesn't have to take that long. It just depends how much content you're going to need. The biggest part of all that, though, is we really need your presenters and your key stakeholders to lean into, hey, we need to rehearse. We need to have a solid show plan in place, and we can't go on the fly on these. And so I would say probably 25 to 30 days on an average production.
Great. All right, what strategies do you have for getting remote guests to cooperate? I think Michelin and Chris, you both can probably tackle this together.
Yeah, I think I'll start out, Michelin, if you don't mind. I mean, again, with the green room, what we like to do is we like to set up tech checks ahead of time so we can have our remote presenters call in to get them checked for lighting, to make sure they don't have a blind that's open, or to make sure that their bandwidth is strong. And it really helps to set them up for rehearsals or the presentation itself. And it makes a big difference, just that pre-production aspect, just taking that little bit of time to bring them in early really makes a big difference, Michelin. I think, if you probably agree.
Yeah, I totally agree. And honestly, just working with them on what makes them comfortable. So for instance, for today, there were some things in my script, there were some things in my setting and my graphics that are things I would never say or do. And so it's really getting your speaker to engage with you and say, hey, I actually wouldn't talk that way, or I would never wear that, or I would never sit that way. And so getting them comfortable is only going to go that much further on making them comfortable on camera.
Great. Let's see, what trends are you seeing with engagement for participants?
So yeah, I'll jump in on this one too. Again, those engaging elements like happy hour together or a gaming competition. We've seen groups work out together in the mornings. Really allow for those attendees to engage a little bit further. And so with the virtual audience, they want some of those things, right? They might not be able to come in person for a variety of reasons, but they still want that collaboration. So again, if you are picking the right platform, you can allow them to have one-on-one meetings with each other right through the platform. You can have smaller breakout groups where there's happy hours in, just like you're flowing into different conversations. And so that really makes a big difference, is that platform. So if you've got an event where your attendees are going to be expecting a lot and expecting a lot of collaboration, you're going to have to go with one of these bigger platform providers.
It's so funny you bring that up, Michelin, because we've had, I can't count how many attendees or presenters that actually were having cocktails, playing the guitar, or basically just, having fun with it and kind of making it a happy hour scenario. So it definitely lightens the mood and makes the meeting a lot more bearable. So.
Absolutely. All right, do you recommend pre-recorded or live when you're advising your clients? Michelin, I'll let you answer that first.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we're going to walk through a discovery process with you. And if I learn that your presentation is high facts, high figures, everything needs to be precise and exact, I'm going to recommend probably doing a pre-record. I'm also going to recommend a pre-record if you've got speakers that span the globe, right? It's going to be virtually impossible to get somebody on at the same time in Australia as the US, as Canada, wherever. And so looking at who your speakers are and what they're delivering usually drives us to say, hey, we should do this pre-recorded. But again, with the right platform, just because your content's pre-recorded doesn't mean there can't be a live component where you're answering questions and still engaging with them. And honestly, it takes the pressure off sometimes those presenters. And so we'll walk through that with you in a discovery process. But if you're good with being live and good to put the time in to rehearse, then let's roll live and we'd go that scenario.
Awesome. I think we got time for just a couple more questions, or just maybe one more question. Then we can move on over to the sessions and we can really dive in to answer your questions in person. But Michelin, how can in-person attendees interact with virtual attendees?
Yeah, this is a great idea. So we did an event this past fall where we had both virtual presenters, in-person presenters. We had virtual attendees and in-person attendees. And we actually used an old technology of push-to-talk microphones. And with the push-to-talk microphones, the in-person attendees could speak to the virtual presenters. The virtual attendees through the chat could ask their questions that we then sent to the downstage monitor to the person who was hosting on site, and they were answering it. So we were pushing and pulling questions and interactions from the virtual audience, from the in-person audience, and then pushing it to both the in-person hosts and the virtual hosts. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
You bet.
All right, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you shortly in the sessions.